6. Section Review. Many people sought explanations and proposed solutions for the changes in social structures and economic systems. Some economists defended the growing disparities between rich and poor in the same of laissez-faire and free market ideas proposed by Adam Smith that appealed to business people. Positivism deplored the hardships caused by industrialization, but asserted that they could be ameliorated by technological advances and wise policies. Agitation by workers led politicians to investigate the working conditions in mines and in factories, especially the work of women and children. The limits of industrialization outside the West. Egypt. The spread of the Industrial Revolution in the early 19th century transformed the relations of Western Europe and North America with the rest of the world. Egypt, strongly influenced by European ideas since the French invasion in 1798, began to industrialize in the early 19th century. The driving force was its ruler, Muhammad Ali, 1769 to 1849, a man who was to play a major role in the history of the Middle East and East Africa. See chapters 24 and 25. Muhammad Ali wanted to build up the Egyptian economy and military in order to become less dependent on the Ottoman Sultan, his nominal overlord. To do so, he imported advisors and technicians from Europe and built cotton mills, foundries, shipyards, weapons factories, and other industrial enterprises. To pay for all of this, he made the peasants grow wheat and cotton, which the government bought at low prices and exported at a profit. He also imported high tariffs on imported goods to force the pace of industrialization. Muhammad Ali's efforts fell foul of the British, who did not want a powerful country threatening to interrupt the flow of travelers and mail across Egypt. The shortest route between Europe and India, when Egypt went to war against the Ottoman Empire in 1839, Britain intervened and forced Muhammad Ali to eliminate all import duties in the name of free trade. Unprotected, Egypt's fledgling industries could not compete with the flood of cheap British products. Thereafter, Egypt exported raw cotton, imported manufactured goods, and became in economic dependency of Britain. India. Until the late 18th century, India had been the world's largest producer and exporter of cotton textiles, handmade by skilled spinners and weavers. The British East India Company took over large parts of India, just as the Industrial Revolution was beginning in Britain. See chapter 25. It allowed cheap British factory-made yarn and cloth to flood the Indian market duty-free, putting spinners and handloom weavers out of work. Unlike Britain, India had no factories to which displaced handicraft workers could turn for work. Most of them became landless peasants, eking out of precarious living. Like other tropical regions, India became an exporter of raw materials and an importer of British industrial goods. To hasten the process, British entrepreneurs and colonial officials introduced railroads into the subcontinent. The construction of India's railroad network began in the mid-1850s, along with coal mining to fuel the locomotives and the installation of the telegraph lines to connect the major cities. Some Indian entrepreneurs saw opportunities in the atmosphere of change that the British created. In 1854, the Bombay merchant Kawaji Nanaboy Devar imported an engineer, 4 skilled workers, and several textile machines from Britain and started India's first textile mill. This was the beginning of India's mechanized cotton industry. Despite many gifted entrepreneurs, however, India's industrialization proceeded at a snail's pace, for the government was in British hands and the British did nothing to encourage Indian industry. China. China stagnated at the very time when first British and then Western Europe and North America were becoming industrialized. It had the resources, both human and natural, to advance technologically and economically, but a conservative elite stood in the way of change. See chapter 20. When faced with Western industrial technology, China became weaker rather than stronger. In January 1840, a shipyard in Britain launched a radically new ship. The Nemesis had an iron hull, a flat bottom that allowed it to navigate in shallow waters, and a steam engine to power it upriver and against the wind. In November, it had arrived off the coast of China heavily armed. Though ships from Europe had been sailing to China for 300 years, the Nemesis was the first steam-powered iron gunboat in Asian waters. A Chinese observer noted, "Iron is employed to make it strong. The hull is painted black, weaver's shuttle fashion. On each side is a wheel, with which by the use of coal fire is made to revolve as fast as a running horse. At the vessel's head is a marine god, and at the head, stern, and sides are cannon, which give it a terrific appearance. Steam vessels are a wonderful invention of foreigners, and are calculated to offer delight to many." Instead of offering delight, the Nemesis and other steam-powered warships that soon joined it steamed up the Chinese rivers, bombarded forts and cities, and transported troops and supplies from place to place along the coast and up rivers far more quickly than Chinese soldiers could move on foot. With this new weapon, Britain, a small island nation half a world away, was able to defeat the largest and most populated country in the world. See Chapter 24. The cases of Egypt, India, and China show how the demands of Western nations and the military advantages that industrialization gave them led them to interfere in the internal affairs of non-industrial societies. As we shall see in Chapter 24, this was the start of a new age of Western dominance. Section Review. Industrialization gave the newly industrialized nations of West the power to coerce non-Western societies. Britain snuffed out the incipient industrialization in Egypt and India and turned these countries into producers of raw materials. China stagnated and was defeated by Britain and its steam-powered gunboats. Conclusion. An industrial revolution was the most momentous transformation in history since the beginning of agriculture. The steam engine and other new machines greatly lowered the cost and increased the production of goods like cotton and iron and the speed of transportation and communication. The process caused social upheavals and environmental problems. However, many entrepreneurs and business people became very wealthy, while industrial workers, many of them children, worked under appalling conditions and lived in overcrowded tenements in badly polluted cities. Economists and philosophers proposed many theories and offered many solutions to the radical problems of industrial societies. Industrialization had political consequences on a global scale. A small number of industrializing nations, first Great Britain, then those of Western Europe and North America, grew more powerful. Other parts of the world were left behind to become political or economic dependencies of the powerful nations. Eventually, the industrial nations learned to alleviate their social problems, but the disparity between the rich and poor nations persisted for 2 centuries or more, and the environmental effects of industrialization changed from local to global. Key terms: Industrial Revolution. Revolution. Mass production. Josiah Wedgwood. Division of labor. Mechanization. Richard Arkwright. Crystal Palace. Steam engine. James Watt. Electric telegraph. Laissez-faire. Mercantilism. And positivism.